What if I told you Monster Hunter Rise actually had a 15th weapon? Remember Prowler from Generations Ultimate? Well, in Rise you have Dog, aka man's best friend and monster's worst enemy. If you don't know, you can actually damage monsters while mounted on a Palamute. However, the damage isn't really that great. The damage is equivalent to a pair of dual blades that move at 1/8 the speed. So yeah, they kinda suck. So what did I do with this knowledge? I attempted to beat the entirety of Monster Hunter Rise base game with only Palamutes. First things first, let's go over the rules. I can only deal damage through Palamutes. If I hit the monster by accident, I have to abandon the quest. I cannot use artillery, wyvern ride, wildlife, or consumables to damage the monsters. And yes, this rule still applies to the serpent fights and rampages. I could use a hunting horn to buff my Palamutes, but that is the only thing I could do with a weapon. The run ends when I beat Narwa the Allmother. Now here's where things get a bit complicated. Palamutes cannot get the final blow on a monster, which is very stupid, so to compensate for this I allowed using traps. However, that isn't really reliable as I would have to get a ton of trap materials and elder dragons of course. So I made a very special rule for the final blow. I can only throw one kunai in a quest at a monster. If the kunai doesn't kill the monster, then I have to abandon, and if it does, then I killed the monster. But how do I know if the monster's HP is 0? Well, I could have guessed the entire time, but I didn't feel like wasting 40 minutes of my life for the wrong judgment. So I installed an HP bar mod, and before you call me cringe and how this goes against a major point of Monster Hunter, I made another special rule for this special rule, which is I can only check a monster's HP when the skull icon appears. Good thing you can toggle the HP bar on and off. I turned off pretty much every setting in this mod. I can only see the bar, and I disabled being able to see the exact numbers, so moments like this can still happen.
It's almost dead, yep. Yes. What? What is your health? What is your health? What is your health? The pixel. The fucking pixel.
This was all streamed live on my Twitch channel, so if you want to see my Monster Hunter Challenge runs live, you should go follow it. Our story starts off with two of the greatest detectives of all time, Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. After skipping all the tutorials, I quickly headed to the Buddy Plaza to get my second Palamute, who was none other than Courage the not-so-cowardly dog. Now that Shaggy has picked up another Palamute buddy, it's time to start hunting monsters. However, since low rank is pretty much an extended tutorial in this game and you fight the exact same monsters in high rank, we can just skip it. The only thing that is worth noting that I figured out in low rank is that element is a lot better than raw and Palamutes, even with the small element numbers. Alright, time to go to post time skip Shaggy. Our crew's first high rank target was none other than Tetranodon. I can now go over the Palamute's moveset. First up, if you press triangle once, you do a swipe move. Then if you press triangle again, you do another swipe move. And lastly, if you press triangle for a third time after the second swipe, you do a dash move that hits the monster 3 times. That is the entirety of the Palamute's moveset while riding on it. For whatever reason, the circle button does nothing on a Palamute. Why didn't they make the Palamute use its range weapon when pressing the circle button while riding on it? I have no clue, it probably would have been too overpowered. Now that you know Palamute's moveset is more complicated than Charge Blade, and as you can see how exciting this gameplay looks, I ran into the exact same problem I did with this video as I did in my no weapon video. And that is making the script is harder than the actual challenge. A lot of swiping and spamming triangle later, Tetranodon fell. One of the coolest things about this run was planning the routing, as since elemental damage is very crucial, I had to plan out the most efficient routes possible. For example, the reason why I hunted a Tetranodon was to get its gear for water damage, which Acnazom is weak to. After Acnazom died from 3 trillion Palamute swipes, I crafted its gear for fire damage, which resulted in me taking down Kezu and Langombi, who are both weak to fire. Routing for this run was pretty much just a domino effect until I got an element that covered 2 or 3 of the key quest monsters. Luckily, scrap isn't hard to get at all, even when I can't wyvern ride, so I was able to craft basically any Palamute gear I could from monsters I hunted. Alright, time for the first high rank Urgent, who was Geratotus. Geratotus was really annoying to fight, however since I had 2 Palamutes, I was able to deal 2 different types of elemental damage. If you don't know, when Geratotus has mud on him, he is weak to water, but when he has no mud on him, he becomes weak to thunder. So I put Tetranodon gear on Scooby-Doo for water damage, and I put Kezu gear on Courage for thunder damage. Obviously when Jura had mud on him, I was attacking with Scoob, and when he had no mud, I was attacking with Courage. This at least made Jura a little fun to fight. With my genius plan, it wasn't too long until the fish did his final flop. Next up is Pookie Pookie, and the only reason I am mentioning this hunt is to tell you all about how OP healing scrolls are. Palamutes are allowed to have 2 gear equipped, and for this run I chose for both of them to run Healing Scroll and Healing Blade Scroll. If you don't know, scrolls also affect the hunter while riding on a Palamute. The Healing Scroll is a heal over time while riding on your Palamute, and the Heal Blade Scroll is basically Vampirism or Lifesteal, and the amount per hit is pretty big, so carding in this run was kinda hard due to the insane healing I get from these 2 scrolls. After stealing Pookie's life, it's time to do the high rank Mizutsune Urchin, who hits like a truck. However, it wasn't too terrible. There were a few close calls, but in the end I was able to capture him with no carts. With Mizutsune in prison for the rest of eternity and the entirety of 6-star done, Ibushi showed up. Time to explain Rampages, everyone's favorite balloons knockoff. I have already done 2 Rampages before this, but I skipped them. This is the most important Rampage, so might as well be the only one I mention. Anyways, as I said in the beginning of the video, I cannot use artillery. I still can only hit monsters with my Palamutes, but I am allowed to place down any auto or limited NPC or artillery, as it's not me damaging the monsters. Yes, gongs do affect Palamutes. Look at all that damage. Ibushi can be a bit scary as he can destroy the gate easily if you can't hit him out of his rock move. Bad news for me, I can't hit him while he is doing his rock move. However, I had a hero and her name was Yamogi, and she was able to hit him out of his rock move a single time, but that single time was a huge help. The time eventually ran out and Ibushi was repelled. Now that Ibushi ran away in fear of the almighty Palamutes, it's time to hunt a tank of a spider, who has more HP than a jet dragon. I was pretty nervous to hunt Rachna Kadaki from the beginning of this run, as it could possibly be a wall due to its health, and the amount of damage I was doing to it did not make me feel any different. I kept chipping away, and slowly but surely I was able to take down the spider. I was honestly shocked that I hunted this in only 40 minutes. It's time for our crew to head into Sevenstar, which was the most interesting star to route. I decided to craft Rachna gear to hunt Goss with it. With Gossarak dead, I collected all his materials and did not make his gear, and put back on Barioth gear because while Goss gear is a higher rarity and has more raw, it also has less ice damage and affinity as Barioth gear. Now that I have ice damage, I hunted Diablos, Rajang, and captured an Almudron, as they all shared ice as a weakness. That is 4 out of the 5 7-star key quest, and I decided to do Tigrex. However, there was no good thunder gear to get in 7-star, so I had to settle with his second weakness, Dragon, by crafting Ibushi's gear. Since I did not have the most optimal gear for this hunt, it took a long time to kill Tigrex. But after a grueling 45 minutes, Tigrex met his end. With all the key quests complete, it's time for the hardest monster in this run, who was none other than Thunder Serpent Narwa. I timed out not only once but twice to this monster, as it has 31,500 HP, which is the most amount of HP a single monster has in the base game of Rise. Since I can't use artillery, and yes, that includes the nuke and Dragonator, dealing 31,000 damage in 50 minutes was very difficult. On top of the insanely hard DPS check, the Palamutes don't really get along with Narwa's rocks, as they make it difficult to stay on them as their final hit lunges you forward. I was also getting really unlucky RNG with stuff like this happening.
What is this RNG? What the fuck? That's sick. That's cool. Nice.
When Narwa is doing her supernova, she floats in the air, which makes it impossible to hit her with a Palamute melee. So I removed the normal heal scroll and replaced it with Shuriken, which is a ranged Palamute gear that they use when you are not mounted on them, and it does a decent amount of damage. So when Narwa starts doing her supernova, I get off my Palamutes and let them start throwing shurikens at her. I also use this time to reapply buffs to my Palamutes. 6 billion hits later and Narwa fell down into the hole with only 25 seconds remaining. While we wait for Narwa's return, I decided to play a long session of Balloons TD6. After a couple of rounds, I was able to unlock the Elder Dragon Trio. Now these hunts were a bit lengthy, but they weren't that bad. I just swiped at them over and over again until they eventually fell. Now that the Elder Trio has fallen, our crew headed back to the Coral Palace for one final hunt. I encountered Ibushi, who was honestly very easy, even if I still can't deal with the rock move and get the explosion damage off. I beat Ibushi in a little less than 15 minutes, which in Palamute terms is extremely fast. All I have left is 35 minutes to kill Narwa the Allmother.
Oh my god, my hunter threaded the needle there. Yeah, I have like a little more than 3 minutes. Man, if that was the ring, that could have been enough damage. I'm gonna keep on damaging him more. I need to be safe. I think after this is good. Nice. Oh, mother. Only Palamutes. 0 artillery used. Wow.
With one final kunai, our cartoon crew took down the All-Mother and saved Kamura Village. If you are wondering why am I not doing Sunbreak, well, it's because Gasmagorum without using artillery and only dealing damage with Palamutes is impossible, considering he has 72,000 HP. The rest of Sunbreak is probably possible, but what's the point in doing that if I can't even hunt the final boss? Even if the Archdemon of the Abyss is still out there terrorizing Elgato, all things are good in Kamura, which is the only thing that matters for our cartoon buddies. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone.